it 0 times. Some people have read it 10 times, and everywhere in between. So ultimately, we wanted to take. Oh, we have to unmute. Are we unmuted now? Thank you, Jimena. So now you guys can hear us out there. But ultimately, we really wanted to give us an opportunity to say, look, some people have read this, sometimes some people read it 0 times, and ultimately kind of collaborate amongst each other and really get some of the key principles out of this book. And really dialogue. We want this to be very interactive. We're not teaching you. We're not. We really just want to have open dialogue around the book. So I guess to start, by a show of hands, or for those if you want to put in the chat box for people here, what do you guys want to get out of the book club? So I just want to set the stage and say, what do you guys want to get out of today? What do you want to get out of each session? Because we're going to be doing these every other Wednesday. What material, what content, what do you guys want to get out of the book club? So that way we can set the expectation and kind of make sure we address that.
I just want to simplify it a little bit. Reading is overwhelming, so if we can break it down little by little into simpler terms that we can adapt things little by little, that works for me.
Yep. Good. Megan, were you?
I was just going to say systems, right? Simplifying is kind of following a system and not even thinking about it, just following the model.
Good. There's a lot of systems in here. The first section is much more about mindset, but we definitely get into the systems. What else?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we spoke about as the growth committee is, as the committee, it's really to grow the market center, but grow everyone's business too, and grow us individually, as well as whether you're an individual agent or a team. And this is a manual. I mean, it's really a hard read. It's not like a storybook. I could read a storybook and finish a whole book in 2 days. This is more of a manual, and it's like sometimes you start reading it and then realize, I don't even know what I just read, and then you have to reread it. So if it's something that we can actually all discuss together and kind of throw out some ideas and get some aha together, maybe, you know, it's just a good way to be able to get from start to finish.
Agreed. Anyone on Zoom, did they put anything in the chat box or any? Nope. Okay, but if you guys want to, you know, obviously unmute yourself, raise your hand to participate as well. We'd love to have you guys participate. So I guess to start, today's section was the introduction and then also the 6 Mythunderstandings. So pages 21 to, I believe, 65, 64. So I guess starting with the first section, you know, really the introduction, page 25, 26, 27. Did anything stand out to you guys at the introduction that, you know, were there any ahas or anything from a mindset that stuck out to you guys?
How it's not as complicated as you think if you have a format to follow.
I think the biggest thing too is that other people have done this before. There's no need to reinvent the wheel and try to start from the bottom, because a lot of times you could actually just get very frustrated and give up. Whereas it's already been done before. You just have to follow the model, and of course bring your own creativity into it, and of course make it your own, but it's already there. So it's just following the way.
I like that quote on page 22, that's in life, the size of our answers is determined by the size of our questions. So that concept of just like, are we asking big enough questions of ourselves, of our businesses, you know, what's possible? I think that kind of just like sets the tone for thinking big.
I would say the aim high. So aiming as high as you matter if you don't actually succeed, but you've obviously are going to succeed more than you expected.
Maybe you fall a little bit short.
Yeah.
Good. I always like the quote, success is simple, not easy. And I think it's about the fundamentals. And I think that kind of shifts a little bit forward, you know, as we go to page like 35, modeling the cornerstone to success. Kathy talked a little about modeling. Megan talked about systems and modeling. What did you guys take away from, like, I don't know, let's look at pages like 35 through 37, like ultimately creating the models and not, you know, what was your takeaway there about like creativity versus like building a strong foundation, I guess? What was your ahas or takeaway from that?
Yeah, that you have to have the foundation before you try getting creative with it. And once that's done, then You know, a lot of times, a lot of people try to get creative or try to find shortcuts or easy ways of doing things, versus just going with the true.
Right, true.
Yeah.
Well, it says here, laid the groundwork for our later accomplishments. So the way I look at it as, you know, in relationship to houses is, right, you can't build a house without a foundation, correct? So unless you have your foundation solid and built, then you can only go up from there, is really the best way to kind of put the two together.
The note that I put on my page, I put fully implement first, innovate second. So really kind of focus on the foundation and the models to create that really strong base before you start to innovate and add stuff to that. Have you guys, like in your businesses, have you seen like where if you fully implement something first before you start being creative, like have you seen that being more effective as opposed to just, I don't know, throwing a lot of things up the wall and trying to almost do too much at once?
It's called the art of mastery. That's what it comes down to. Before you can move on or elaborate on anything, you have to master your first step. If you can't master your first step, you're not gonna, or climbing up a ladder. You know, how fast can you get up that ladder? I'm gonna miss a ring, I'm gonna fall all the way back down, versus let me take one step up that ladder as I go.
Yep.
And sometimes you gotta fall down to get right back up and get stronger.
And I think that's part of it too. Like sometimes you have to take 3 steps back and revisit everything. For some of us, I mean, I've been doing this 19 years, right? And it's constantly evolving and changing the business, but we're constantly evolving and changing how we run the business and the team and the strategy. So you have to go backwards sometimes.
I like that. Victor, I think that's your picture. He wrote, establish a foundation, add your own creativity once you establish that foundation. Stable foundation equals understanding your model and putting in personal creativity. Great, I love that, Victor. What else? Anything else that stuck out to you guys on that page?
It's on that sheet, but the whole thing about Mount Everest, how for 100 years, nobody made it to the top.
Yep.
And once one person made it to the top and they showed the path, then other people within a year. And I feel like this is, if we follow this foundation and this path,
Yep.
we all collectively can get to the top.
Well, and it's like, I forget if it's in this section or if it's later, it's the 4-minute mile. People try to do that forever and they couldn't do it. But then once the first person did it, then now everyone can do it. But what that person did was they broke it down by doing, okay, can I do 1 mile in X amount, you know, under a minute, then the second mile under a minute. So if you do it, if you break it down into small chunks, you can then, you know, achieve the bigger picture, the bigger goal. So I like that Mount Everest example. I also think that ties into the next section, which is page really 38 and 39, which is ultimately about your natural ability and your achievement ceilings. We all have achievement ceilings in that, look, we all only have 24 hours in a day. So ultimately, in order for us to get to that next step, we either have to find leverage, we need to tweak what we're doing, be more, you know, be more productive in the way that we're doing things. So I guess, have you guys seen, it doesn't just have to be in real estate, in your business in real estate, but anything in your life where, you know, it could be maybe you've done sports, maybe you've done something where you've reached a natural level of achievement, and until you have a coach or until you have someone say, hey, try this, try that, or finding leverage in your business or in a different thing, where you then, okay, this is how I get to that next level. And that's really what the picture, for those of you following on page 39, I think is great, because you go to that ceiling and then you're like, okay, I keep hitting it. Now, how do I get to that next level? Okay, maybe it's finding leverage, maybe it's hiring an admin, maybe it's getting a buyer's agent. What do you guys see in your life, whether real estate or otherwise, how that applies?
I hired a coach because what I
Good.
was doing wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I was doing it year after year, getting the same results. So something had to shift there. And so far it's been good.
Good, great. And what does a coach do for you?
Accountability, I think it gets clarity. And for me right now, I'm happy we're reading this because a lot of the models are from this book, all of them are. So it's just getting a deeper understanding of it and then just being held accountable. And like I said before, when you follow the model, there's no brain power. You just have to execute the items. So it kind of removes some of that negotiation do with yourself of, oh, what should I do today? Follow your plan and just do it.
Love it.
Another thing, you know, obviously was for myself is a different way to teach the team, right? And a different way for the team to collaborate, because, you know, whatever was going, what we were doing wasn't working. So I had to sit there and take 3 steps back and say, okay, why is it not working? what can I do to make it work better? And how can I help them to move forward, right? So I had to look down, I had to hold myself accountable and also hold them accountable. And it's, you know, it's a two-way street or a 50% partnership here, but understanding from each side what went wrong. So I think that was one big thing. And also different implementations. Okay, so if this is not working, what am I going to do to break through and pivot to get to that next level?
Yep.
Because we were flat. So I don't want to be flat. I want to grow.
Yep.
I want to grow as a person. I want to grow as a team. I want to grow on family life. There's many different aspects of my life that I want to grow in. And the only way to do it is to really sit back and take ownership. One of the best exercises that I've actually asked them to do, very similar to what Megan, right? Megan said, was, okay, at the end of the week, are you a full-time real estate agent or are you a part-time real estate agent? I want you to track your activities. I want you to write down how many hours you physically worked. And then if you only work X amount of hours, you're not a realtor. You're just, you know, you're just an open the door kind of person. If something wants to buy a house, great, we buy a house. But what parts are you missing? And be true to yourself, you know, own it.
Yeah.
You know, you screwed up, you say I messed up and, you know, this is what I did wrong and this is how I'm going to fix it. And I think since, I mean, and you know, two of them are here today. I think since we kind of started doing this, I see a difference in their collaboration. I see a difference in their production, their awareness, their willingness to succeed. So.
No, I love that. And I also think I like what you said too. You're willing to take potentially a step back to really analyze the systems, knowing that by fixing it, you're going to get to that greater heights. Sometimes you have to be willing to do that and not just try to keep, you know, running into the same wall.
Yeah.
It sounds like we had the same month, right? So we kind of had that. And my question to the team last week on our call was, are you interested in real estate or are you obsessed in real estate? Because if you're just dibble dabbling, if you're just working 2 hours a day, your end results will be 2 hours a day pay at the end of the year, right? I looked at this though, a little different as far as what I read here, Matt, was that to put your goal or your, you know, your breakthrough at such a high number, because a lot of times we make our breakthroughs very small, like we make our goals very small, and then we're constantly hitting that wall versus just really seeing a much, much bigger picture.
Well, and then you have to ask yourself, what type of habits are you doing? Do you have $80 million a year habits, or do you have $5 million a year person habits? Because ultimately you want to strive, to your point, to the, if you want to build a big business, you want to build habits that are for an $80 million producer, and know that even if you fall short, okay, like, but you're doing the habits that could get you there. I love that. What else? Anything else on page 39? But I think we did a good job covering that.
Yeah, I think what the rest of what you just shared, I think is like right in line with this, right? You said like you reached a point where you were like, okay, something has got to change. And you know, here on page 39, it says, what I've discovered is that by starting with models, you can push your ceiling higher and eventually break through them. And you said you took a step back, right? You looked at like, what is my foundational model? What can I change here to get me over that?
We have cracks. We have cracks in our foundation and that we needed to seal. We needed to clean them up, fix them up and say, okay, we internalize the issue. We understand the issue. That's great. But now how am I going to correct this issue?
Right.
And it's my job as the leader and the rainmaker to feed everyone else on the team. I got to figure it out. I got to clean it up. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to bring it home less money, but that's fine. But at the ultimate goal at the end, it's going to, the ROI on it is going to be 4 times as much, and it's going to be fruitful for everybody. And that's the bottom line.
I love it.
And the exercise there is to all of that is understanding what your big why is. And that's obviously a different conversation than what we're doing necessarily here, but yeah, but if you, whether you're an agent doing this 40 hours a week, or whether you're doing this as supplemental income or part-time, know why you're in the business and know how you're going to define a successful year. Because if you don't know that, then you're going to be in that kind of like limbo, weird mental space. So just definitely consider that. So I want to move forward to page 40, 41, really through, I guess, page 43, because you're going to hear throughout this entire book the 3 L's, which is really leads, listings, and leverage. So that's ultimately, it all starts with leads, and then it goes to listings and then leverage. But I guess let me open it to you guys. When you guys think of leads and lead generation, is that your number one thing? Is that like, what's you, when you're reading these few pages, how did it resonate with you guys?
You can't go up, right? If you don't lay it, you can't climb. So your fundamentals are your leads, your spear, your listings, your buyer leads, right? So if we can't start with that, then they're not gonna refer me. I'm not gonna get that listing. Then that listing is going to generate a buyer,
Yep.
right? So it's kind of like almost instead of a triangle, it's almost like a vicious circle that just keeps spinning like a hamster on a wheel. But we need that wheel to be well oiled and moving at a very quick pace. To keep up with the demands of the consumer, the demands of the market center, the demands of your goals. You really need to cultivate those leads that will generate listings and that will generate sales and start all over again. And then obviously you're gonna add leverage.
Yep. Yep.
Right? If we don't have these two, we can't afford to pay
You
for
don't
the
need the
third piece.
leverage.
We can't afford the third piece of the equation. So it kind of all goes tandemly. Rather than a triangle, I see it as a big vicious wheel of a circle.
Yeah, you could be the best realtor in the world, but if you don't have any clients, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could be the best negotiator, but if you're negotiating for air, then it's kind of useless. So
Yeah.
I feel like that is something I needed to hear. Like, I'm a great realtor, right, from Bold, but like, if you don't have anyone to do that skill with, then you can be a great realtor at home by yourself, making no money.
Looking in the mirror.
Yeah, and be like, I can sell
Singing in the
myself.
shower.
Yeah, and that's
That's
a great
really
realtor.
good.
Listen, time on the task beats talent every time. Like, you can be talented, but if you're not dedicated. And I think that's like a big misconception you get in the business, like, oh, well, I'm really smart. Well, that's great, but are you good at lead generating? And like, everyone has two jobs, their chosen profession and lead generation. And I hate that because it's so true. I don't want to lead generate, but then I can't do this job then. And if you don't want to make leads and make that your one thing, then you got to find a different job. And that's like the harsh reality, I think, of being a realtor.
I agree with that. You go
I
ahead.
look at it as if I'm gonna lead generate, I always tell my team, go for the listings, right? So this just reminds me that from the very beginning, I've been a listing agent always. And that if you're gonna put the time and the effort or the money to generate leads, that you should be focusing on listings. And one of the things I've done a little differently this year is that all my marketing, all my videos, all my things are really more towards the seller, right? Because if you get the listing, you're gonna get the buyer. And if you do good marketing, you're probably gonna be able to generate more listings and more buyers from that listing. So I look at it as lead generate for listings.
Yeah. Well, and look at it this way, like from a time perspective. I mean, for a listing, how much time are you really putting into that versus?
Depends.
It kind of depends.
Listen, I have some people who leave me dry.
No,
In this market though, buyers are killing us emotionally.
Yeah,
because
you're
it's-
definitely
you're
gonna
writing
put
12
all
offers.
yeah, I mean, if you were to make a list of everything you do for a seller in a listing versus everything you do for a buyer, and from contract to close, even from the beginning, I bet you the time would be significantly more than you would on a listing.
And I also think with like a listing, right? I think COVID also kind of forced us into realizing that in theory, you could take a listing, market a listing and sell a listing without even technically ever stepping foot in the house. You can't really do that with a buyer. Like, I just think their natural tendency, even if, we did have a few people buying like houses sight unseen, is they want to go out and look at houses. So you gotta be out there physically. Whereas technically you could do a listing consult, take the listing, have a photographer go take the photos, put it on the MLS and then.
And sell in 2 days.
Yeah, but keep in mind, okay, so that's today's market, but let's get real. guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had my backside handed to me in different markets, and I've gone through quite a few cycles, I will say. Good markets, bad markets, and in different markets, and when they were losing their home markets. Very different dynamics. So when you're doing a short sale as a listing agent,
For
you know
sure.
what? I'm putting in 90 hours on that one listing and praying that they pay me at the end, even though I have to pay her and I have to pay the next person and the bank.
Yeah.
I might be left with $1,000 and I work 90 hours for it. So like,
No, for
there's
sure.
different ways of spinning it. And the thinking about it, I mean, the world that we live in today, that things are selling in a hot lickety
Yeah,
split.
it's not
That's
gonna be
one
like that
thing,
forever.
but this is not gonna be, I'm prepared
Yeah.
to modify myself to what it was previously.
a normal.
But it's still better to be a listing agent no matter what market it's in.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, the bottom line is, and I think that, on page 42, it says one listing properly marketed should generate enough leads to produce a minimum of one closed buyer, which is what we had said before. That's why listings are great, because it does, if you properly market it, you will get one buyer from it.
Mhm.
Bill, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say, I just had a
I was
listing
up
in
this
Butler
morning,
where
8:30 this morning.
I listed it, it was a coming soon, I had an agent send me an offer, sight unseen, and then had the audacity to say to me, well, now that you have my offer, you're gonna let me see it, right? And I was like, no, sorry, you're gonna wait.
Mhm.
And in this market, you're
Did
gonna
they get
wait. Did they get it? No, they didn't.
Okay.
They ended up coming in over asking and they didn't come in enough.
Okay.
And I've had agents who looked at the house and said, oh, you're massively over.
Oh, to each his own.
Yeah.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Correct. Well, and we'll definitely continue. The 3 L's are going to come up a lot throughout the book. So we will definitely be talking more about the 3 L's in the future. And also when we talk about the lead gen model, specifically how to generate leads and how many leads you need to fund, the life you want to live and have in real estate.
We're coming up on Francis, that favorite part.
Yes,
Mhm.
go for
She
it.
wants to receive, she wants to be on the upper part.
Yes, so page 44, it talks about the 4 stages of growth on the path to $1 million. So it goes think $1 million, which is really the stage we're in right now. The first, I'd say 100 pages of the book is about being able to believe and you have the right mindset to achieve the goal you want to achieve. Then it goes to earn $1 million. And once we get to that section, we talk more about the economic model, lead gen model, budget model, organizational model. Then it goes to net $1 million. And then receive $1 million, which will ultimately be building a 7th level business. So we'll work through each of those really over the course of the next few months as we go through the book. But right now, if you're looking on page 44, figure 8, we're in the think $1 million stage. That's where we're at right now. What I want to do is, so we're about 30 minutes in. I feel like we can kind of shift to the second part of our topic, which are the Mythunderstandings, page 47. So I guess for those of you, or did somebody say something in the chat box I can't read? Oh, Christina Rich from the book. To succeed in real estate, you must have client leads. Has 2 jobs, their chosen profession and lead generation. So that's also goes off of kind of what we've been saying. So thank you, Christine, for that. As we move to page 47, 48, and 49, as we're going to the Mythunderstandings, I guess let's just kind of tackle each one like briefly. When we look at the Mythunderstandings, the first common misunderstanding, the myth is I can't do it. The truth is until you try, you can't possibly know what you can or can't do. So where have you guys seen that either in your business or again, it doesn't just have to be real estate. I mean, we've all encountered these types of things in a lot of different areas in our lives. Where have you guys seen that before?
You don't set the bar high enough. That's the thing. You think that it's impossible to do. So if you don't believe in yourself, how can you believe in you?
Pete? I didn't want to call anybody.
No. I just got off a coaching call, ran into this, so like my wheels are turning really fast right now. No, but I think like going back to like the achievement ceiling, right? It's like you hit, 3 million your first year and you're like, you look at someone doing 10, you're like, I can't do that. And then you push a little bit further and it's just like every time you break through that new milestone, you shatter that myth. And eventually you start to realize, well, if I could do that like 5 different times and I could reach all those milestones, you eventually start to think there really is nothing I can't do. It's just a matter of having the right people around me and the belief in myself to be able to do it.
And like, would you ever talk to a kid like, oh, your dreams are silly, think smaller? Like we would never talk, well, maybe some of us would, but like you would never talk to a kid like that. So why are you talking to yourself like that?
Yep.
And I think that was like a really big moment of why do we lose that as we get older? I think life is tough and we get, beaten down a little, we lose that imagination. But I think it was super important to like think about how you would talk to yourself as a child. And why would you talk to yourself now any differently? I thought for me, that was very powerful.
I like that. I like on page 51, it says, here's an even greater truth that high achievers have long since discovered. once you try and achieve one thing you thought might not be possible, it becomes easier and easier for you to see the impossible and then achieve it. So it's that muscle memory of, okay, once you achieve something you didn't think was possible, then the next time someone's like, oh, I don't think you can do that. You're like, wait, you have a habit and a habit of doing it. So it's really kind of, putting yourself out there. And I forget whose point it was, just having big goals and allowing yourself to, do that. Fail forward, as
Well,
they say in our
that,
world.
and when you see that other people have done it
Mhm.
and have gotten to such a high level, it seems like, okay, well, if they could do it, then I could do it. I just need to make sure I put everything in place to get there, but it can be done. It's not like you can't.
Right, Kathy, Teresa can do it, we could do it.
Anybody can do it.
So as I'm making that as a joke, I love her, she knows it. So when I remember many, many years ago, when the market had started to change like really bad, and being at an office, and I remember a lot of people standing around the coffee machine talking about like how nobody was gonna sell and nobody was gonna buy, and meanwhile, there were these two agents in my office that were like killing it and selling so much. And one of them was really short and like, I just like with an accent, I thought if he could do it, I definitely could do it, right? And that was like where I focused my like mentality, almost like it's being done. So like the bottom line is, if they're doing it, I just gotta figure out how to get the phone to ring for me now. So I've always been that way.
I'll share a fun one with you, but we're not gonna share people's names. So when I started out in this business, we would present offers in person, things were a little bit different. You'd have to try to beat down the seller versus going up. And I remember going face to face with an agent, and he said something like along the lines of me, like, you're a cute kid or something like that. And I turned around, I said, kid, I'm a married grown woman, first of all. Second of all, just because I look better than your wife doesn't mean you couldn't be my husband. I went back to that office and I turned around and said, I'm gonna take that person out. And let me tell you something, I threw him out.
I threw out the little guy with the accent too, by the way, so thanks.
I can remember.
But like, you know what? Like, what was your goal? That was my goal.
Yeah.
Like that, like I was so pissed, right? That it just literally made me go after that and was like, you're no longer number one. I'm taking over.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you need that type of thing to happen to where you're like, I'm gonna prove this person wrong or this and
Yeah.
really be able to do that. I would also just
If you can do
say,
that without that happening, though, that's the
But it
bottom.
was
when
But
we
it
move,
created an emotional response
Yeah.
to you, right? It was a goal
Yeah.
that made you feel a certain way, that it wasn't just about money and buying a new car or anything. It was about, dude, you're going down. Like, that's it. Like, this is what is like,
And then now we're gonna show you who's boss.
you're getting me fired up just thinking about like, who can I set my sights on here?
So I guess if we move to the second myth understanding, I do hear this one a lot. The myth, it can't be done in my market. The truth, yes, it can, but you may need a new approach. And I've heard this a lot, not necessarily in our office, but whenever we go to family reunion or mega camp, and you hear from people from all across the country, and someone talks about, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it's really working at a really high level. I always hear something, oh, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work where I am. And I do think that it's important to just say that, again, like we've been kind of talking, you have to, I think Megan said this, you have to have positive affirmation. You're like, I can do this. Like, why can't I do this in this market? You need to tweak some things, but I guess, they say here, it says it may be possible elsewhere, but it will never work in my market. Have you guys heard that? And what would you say to someone who would say that?
Well, I've heard it and I believe it.
Yeah.
Like in a sense where I see some of these teams up at family reunion, they sold 1,200 units. That's like a house a minute. Like, I mean,
But you could do
That's-
that if you stop showing houses to buyers and you sit here and you just grow.
okay, but they also have, keep in mind, everyone, if they're selling 1,200 units, they have a team of 20. They have a small
That's
office.
Well, standing alone.
Yeah, I mean, there's an office, so like, it can be done in any market with X amount of
That's the
people.
leverage part.
Yeah,
Mhm.
X amount of people under it. Not one single person is selling 1,200 homes. I don't get.
Yeah.
Bless him if he is,
Yeah.
or she is.
What else? Anyone else on that myth understanding?
So something that I've always interpreted this as is like, so we are blessed and we're cursed with our price point in this market.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of times we see those teams that are doing all those units. And it's like, wow, like what would that even look like, right? Like it would be so much volume here, right? And how could we achieve that? And yet, one of the things I think I've seen is that like in this area, how many units does it take for like an average person to make a living, right? I mean, there's a lot of different perspectives on that, but like I think like a lot
Let's
of
say the
people.
average income's 48,000. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the average income across America.
So like, I think there's a path in our market to like achieving like making a living without selling that many homes. So again, like going back to that, like the habits that we create, if you need to just build habits to sell 8 to 10 homes in a year, it's a lot different than in a market where maybe the same person has to sell 30 homes to achieve that. So
Yeah, like what's the price point of the
they
teams that are
build
selling
habits.
2,000 units?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like I remember Texas, Van Pool Properties, I believe it was.
yeah.
Like I don't know, it was like something astounding. And then Reynolds team is another
Mhm.
one. Ridiculous, but they're like in 4 different markets. Their team is the size of our office.
Yeah.
Like there's 300 people on that team.
Mhm.
Of course you're making, $20 million. Like you have a whole office,
Well, the cool thing though is, and to Scott's point, like I think the book uses maybe like 250,000 as like the average
Mhm.
price point, which obviously is almost half of probably what like right now our average is probably close to 500,000. So, but the cool thing is once we get to the economic model of things, we're plugging in what your average sale price is. So like what we're talking in kind of the macro general terms right now, once we get to the economic model, you're going to plug in your own numbers, like what your conversion rate is, what your average price point is, what your average commission percentage is. But I think it's important to know that when we're looking at the book, that the average price point is much higher here than it is that they're referencing.
Yeah, and like some of those baselines that they use where it's, getting to that 30 to 36 units as a solo agent is the threshold to like start building a team, right? Like in our market, I think we are very often thinking like, oh, let's start building a team sooner because the volume shows up before, you're achieving those unit goals. And yet if they can do it in their market, doing 30 units as a solo agent, then there should be no reason in our market that we can't do that. So that's one of the things.
That's like using the excuse though, even just within our own market, when we talk about COVID, right? Oh, COVID, it's so bad, we can't sell anything. And then you have other agents that are killing it during COVID. So it's really putting a limitation on yourself as opposed to, you know what? The houses are selling and there's so many different reasons why a house has to sell during the year, whether it's, a death, a divorce, or whatever. There's so many different reasons. It's just a matter of figuring it out to maneuver through the market and meet your goal.
You kind of reminded me, like, there are agents out there that are focusing on people who have died because of COVID. So when other agents say, oh, well, COVID kind of messed things up, it's like, well, did it mess it up for these other agents?
Right, because
They
there's always
figured it out
opportunities.
because there's always something going on, yeah.
But that goes to the fact that we're even sitting in this room right now with this group of people
Mhm.
in a mastermind and collaborating where there's offices that their doors are still closed
Yeah.
out of fear, right? And so, yes, being smart and everybody being comfortable, and it's wonderful. And as part of the growth committee, I just want to actually say thank you to everyone that's here in person and online for, making this a successful day. But, whichever way, if you're not comfortable being here in person, that's fine,
Yep.
being on video. But it's the energy, and it's like, even for me, I haven't been coming into the office as much. It's not the same when I'm working from home. I was really looking forward to us being able to go back to this because we're gonna
Agreed.
feed off each other's energy. We're gonna be able to help each other, collaborate with each other. And when you're seeing people doing it, to Kathy's point, you're like, okay, I gotta stop this little pity party and get off my bed or my couch
Yeah.
and get out and figure out how to work. And if you're not comfortable, like I don't need to do an open house. I don't want to do an open house. I ask my agents, who is comfortable, who wants to do it, right? And if not, let's do virtual open houses, or you figure out how to do it, but there's no more excuses of that there's no business or you can't do it. Over 6 million houses sold in the United States last year.
Mhm.
So there's 2 sides to that. So there's a lot of realtors that sold houses.
And one out of every
That's
4
just
was
an
a Keller Williams
excuse.
agent.
Yeah.
One out of every 4
So,
homes that sold was
So
by
you
a
have
Keller
to
Williams agent.
decide, again, are you interested in real estate or are you obsessed
Yeah.
do you want to just make a living or do you want to make a life? You know, like, yeah.
Yeah.
You can have reasons and results, but you can't have both, right?
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
One thing I would just also like to add just before we go on is
Yeah.
it can't be done in my market. I often find myself thinking like with these iBuyers and stuff that are out west, right? Like I think it goes both ways. That like the things that are taking away and challenging agents in different parts of the country don't necessarily fall into the belief that it can't also happen in our market. So I think it kind of goes both ways in that sense. It's just something I think about.
I agree. I would also say, like, for those on Zoom and also in our world, if you're a newer agent, like someone who's maybe not been in the business for, you know, whether this is your first year, first few months, if there's something in this book, like, since this is a mindset piece, if you have any, like, you know, challenges that you're facing and like ways that you can overcome that, please put that in the chat box. Feel free to bring it up, because I do think that that's all part of this misunderstanding part right now, which is trying to break through some of those like challenges that you might be having mentally or just in the market. And we're going to do another mastermind, I believe, on the 24th. Specifically, I don't think the time's yet, but we're acknowledging this is a really difficult market. We're going to have a mastermind just around ways that we can, you know, help with
Handle
that.
those
Handle
objections.
Handle those objections.
And
Yeah.
figure out a creative way to alleviate, I think, that stress that we're all feeling.
Correct. So, you know, feel free if you want to put in the chat box while we are moving forward, if there is something you're facing that is a mindset driven piece, feel free to put that in. We're here to collaborate. That's what this is all about, collaborating and really helping us all succeed. And to echo Francis' point, thank you guys for everyone who is here in person, also on Zoom. And we have almost over total, probably like 45, 50 people, which is great. When we move to the third and fourth common misunderstanding, the myth, it would take too much time and effort, I would lose my freedom. The truth, time and effort are not the deciding factors in success. And then I just want to look at the fourth common misunderstanding, which is it's too risky, I'll lose my money. The truth, risk is in direct proportion to how well you hold your incremental costs accountable to producing incremental results. So in either of those two misunderstandings, is there what resonates with you guys on either of those?
It's working smarter, not harder.
It's
Because-
building foundation so you have a path to follow.
Because you can get somebody that is putting so much time and getting very little return, and somebody that's actually working smarter and putting in less time, but actually getting better results.
Being more
Can
purposeful.
I piggyback on that for a second?
Sure.
How many times have you seen an agent who's always in this office, right? Like just sits, like always comes to work every day, right? So they're doing what they're supposed to do. They come to work every single day. But they're not launching. They're not taking off. So what is wrong with that picture? There's something wrong, right?
Well,
So they're
yeah.
working harder, not smarter. They're not starting from the bottom.
Or they're not
To work
tracking,
up.
so they don't even
Yeah.
know where it's wrong. Is it their conversion? Is it their
Yeah.
numbers? Like when you don't track your numbers, you don't even know what to fix because you don't even know where the problem is.
Well, this is why you should have a meeting with yourself once a week. And that meeting with yourself is once a week is your accountability of what went wrong.
Yeah.
And this week, the next week, you can try to tweak it and fix what went wrong to make it right. And by week 4, you should have a mastery program in place for yourself.
And I think to kind of go up with that, I think a lot of times it can become analysis paralysis. I see from people who are brand new to the business or even getting started, it can sometimes be they want to know everything and anything about the real estate industry before they feel confident going out there. And the reality is you just have to put yourself out there and do it, because we have the systems, the team, the support, the collaboration to be able to help people when they're in need. But if you don't put yourself even out there, kind of to Megan's point and Kathy and trust as well, you're basically just, you're sitting and you're where you're supposed to be, but you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
I also feel like a lot of times it also has to do with skills and understanding what's currently going on in the market. And you talked about, you know, being able to handle objections. So like, you know, again, kudos to everybody that's here who's part of real estate and part of your job as a realtor is the lead generation, making the appointments, showing houses, writing contracts and negotiating. But another part is the education part, right? Really, if you're gonna say you're the trusted expert or the knowledge advisor or whatever, and you don't know how to explain to a client why they shouldn't be waiting until later this year when the market crashes. Stay tuned for my video later this week that I'm gonna be posting. Like, who said the market is crashing? Like, you know, and if we're not putting it out there for the consumer to understand why we don't expect the market to crash, why they shouldn't be waiting, you know, why rents went up 17%, interest rates going up, it's gonna cost them more money, then that's shame on us too, right?
Good.
You gotta
So-
spend money to make money.
Yep, so play red light, green light, to hold
Yeah.
yourself accountable.
Yeah, so
Page
if something's not
59.
working, right, and you're spending a lot of money on this and it's not generating anything, then it's time to put the brakes on it. And let's see what other of your other 2, 3, 4, 5 systems are working. And then kind of shift the boxes to see where are your leads coming from? Where is the money being dispersed? Okay, so where did we go wrong?
Mhm.
Or what do we need to amp up and what can we scale back on? All at the same time.
Love it.
You're making your head spin.
When we look at the fifth common misunderstanding, it says, my clients will only work with me, only I can deliver quality service, versus the truth. Your clients aren't loyal to you, they are loyal to the standards you represent. And I think that's really important, both from a new agent, but also if you're looking to grow and build a team, it's understanding that you can't be responsible for doing everything and trusting that people, your clients are buying into the standards of service that you're providing. So the question that I always ask everyone is, what is your unique value proposition? And whether you're a new agent or whether you're an experienced agent, if you're communicating with someone, why work with me? What makes you unique? What is your unique value proposition? And if you don't know the answer to that, that's okay. But that's an answer or a question that I would definitely want to know the answer to internally, because if you don't know that, then you're not gonna be able to recite that back to someone. So I would just, I think that's important when we're looking at the fifth misunderstanding.
Your 1-minute elevator pitch.
Yes, your 1 minute elevator pitch, exactly.
That is a hard one, though. That is a hard one to.
Let go.
I think we should all work
Yeah.
on that. I think everybody here should work on their 1-minute elevator pitch.
Yeah,
Homework, Kath, for
yeah,
next
there you go. Yeah, that is a hard one, though,
Stop.
because you
I'm
feel
stressing
like,
out
you know,
myself.
they're asking you,
For you.
right?
Yeah.
And then you feel like, well, if I pass it off to somebody else, either they're gonna get upset with me that I'm passing them off to somebody else and they're not gonna get the same service. So it's really, if you're actually working as a team, it's really training the rest of the team members to follow your standards
And ultimately,
so that they are getting the same service from any one of us.
and the question is, do you know what your standards are? And that's where, as an agent, it's important to make almost like an operations manual or a manual saying, look, when someone sends an email, this has to be responded to within no more than 3 hours or whatever it's whatever your standard is, that's what your standard is. And anyone who's going to work with you has to abide by that standard. So if you don't know what your standards are, what your unique value proposition are, that's a great place and a great homework exercise. Your 1 minute elevator pitch, that's a great homework exercise coming out of this, because that's how you're going to develop those
And
standards.
that's basically setting up your systems.
Correct, correct.
When I read that, it makes me think of core values too.
Yep.
right? Like, is it in alignment with your core values? Your standards and practices should be in alignment with your core values. If you can communicate your core values, your team should also be able to replicate that, right? It also makes decisions easier, right? You might go on a listing appointment and realize this person doesn't want to sell to a certain kind of person or is trying to hide something or any of that. And you're like, whoa, this is not in line with my standards and practices, not in line with my core values. I don't want to work with this client. And it makes that decision a lot easier too. You don't spend time on it.
And what you need is a vision statement. So you need
Yeah.
that big why, which we talked about before. Where you need the mission and vision statement. So for Catered Prosperity, we embrace a positive, fulfilling, and collaborative agent community that adheres to the highest ethical standards. And then it's okay. So with that, what are our core values?
Right.
What are our core principles? And if you can know that, then that's how people are you attract like people.
And
So you want, exactly, and you also repel people who don't want that. So you want to make sure you know what your core values are, because you want to know who you're attracting. Absolutely. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left. So I want to go through the last 6 misunderstanding, which is the myth, having a goal and not fully realizing it is a negative thing. The truth is having a goal and not trying to achieve it is a negative thing. So when you guys hear that misunderstanding, how does that resonate with you guys? Page 61. And for those of you on Zoom, if you want to put in the chat box, what does the 6 common misunderstanding, how does that resonate with you guys?
I always love the portrait of achiever, the Abraham Lincoln thing, because I think it like also goes back to earlier in the book with the thinking a million of like how many people stop just short of actually having that breakthrough to their ultimate goal. The idea that like he failed miserably so many times and yet achieved ultimate success in getting elected to be the president. So like, if he had stopped at any one of those points,
He wouldn't have got, he wouldn't have been a president.
yeah.
And one of our best presidents.
I know, so then, like,
Like,
yeah.
not even just a president.
So
It
when
had that like huge impact
Yeah.
that if he made any different decision, right? Yeah, like
Right.
how it would have impacted so many other people as well.
I
So
like where it says about changing your perspective on failure, that
Mhm.
everyone experiences failure before they ultimately succeed.
Yep.
So, no one's gonna go right from from the bottom to the
Yeah.
top without experiencing something in between of failure and moving past it.
No one was born a realtor, so I would say. You wanna go ahead?
I really, it makes it easier for me to be a realtor, understanding that I'm not gonna go through my whole realtor life not failing at least one more time. So every time I have a fail,
Just one more.
no.
That's
Every
great.
time every time somebody's angry at me on the phone or something like that, like that's just crossing off one more
Right.
It's
fail.
closer to a success.
Yeah, like
Right.
it's it's not.
You're right.
Who else? Anyone else? So we're kind of at the end of this section. I'd love to hear some ahas. Maybe, we could take like 2 or 3 ahas, or from the people that are plugging in on Zoom, if you could put in the chat box, maybe some of your ahas. Whatever experience knocks you down, it looks like a long one for me to read, but it does look good. Whatever experience knocks you down makes you get up and try harder to succeed. I love that. So any ahas you guys got from today, please put in the chat box. If anyone here wants to share one or
I feel
two
like
ahas.
I've read this before,
Mhm.
read this book, and every single time I've had the mindset of I don't want to be a millionaire real estate agent. And I still don't, right? That's not a goal I desire. But I think that's too big. I don't need that big of a life. I'm good. I can do other things and do well. But what blew my mind that I think like I'm a different person was when you have big models, it gives you more longevity before you hit a ceiling. So when we look at it, like this doesn't mean I have to become a millionaire real estate agent, but it means if I follow this model, I probably won't outgrow it ever. So that made me feel like, oh, if I implement this, I'm done for life. Like I don't have to worry about like reinventing the wheel every 5 years.
Mhm.
So I looked at it completely differently. I think this book can be overwhelming when you're not a millionaire real estate agent. And I saw it as a way, if I follow this, I'll never have to implement anything ever again. It's kind of like a refreshing of like, oh, I'm good. Just follow the models and I'll never outgrow it and you'll be fine. So I finally had like a different mindset switch on it.
I love that. Who else? Anyone else have an aha they want to share? Anyone on Zoom? Anyone in here?
Can't be the only one.
Just talk forever, so I'm just not even gonna say anything. We'll just keep going on.
Good. So what I want to do is I want to close out today. So great job, everyone, in your participation. I think we really covered a lot. Next session, which is 2 Wednesdays from now, the 23rd, it'll be the same time, 12:30. We're going to do Think a Million, which is pages 67 to 96, roughly there. We're going to talk about the 9 ways a millionaire real estate agent thinks. So we'll go through all of that. We'll talk about the big why, which we talked about a little bit. I like that note date, but what you mean? Perfect. Love it. What I want to do before we close out, Ranya's coming in from the culture committee because we have our wing off. But we also have a raffle. So I just wanted you to pop in. We've got a bunch of people in both places.
Yes. Hi, guys.
Hey,
Hello.
We're doing the wing competition today and you all get to test. We have about 18 wings each. So there's going to be 3 chefs making their favorite recipe. You'll see what they are, and we're gonna have 5 judges, and everybody else obviously takes what they want to. Then we're gonna pick the winner, and then we're gonna give them a prize. And then the second thing, what we're gonna do is raffle off 3 prizes to do between now and the sales rally on Tuesday. We're coming up with a figure right now, because last time I think we did better by buying 1 for $20 for 1 raffle, 2 raffles for $30, and 3 raffles for $40. So it gets cheaper as you go. And your name will get dropped multiple times, as many raffles as you buy. The 3 prizes have been advertised multiple times. $100 gift certificate to Williams Sonoma. The other one is a Cuisinart air fryer. And the last one is a smokeless fire pit, super cool. So we would love for you guys to test the wings. And if you guys want to buy raffles, let me or Donna Nelson know.
And I just want to say the raffle, the money that we raise will go to different things that we do throughout this year in 2022. So whether it's the backpacks with CASA, whether it's Red Day, or we're giving back to the community, whatever.
It's always used for the
that.
fundraisers we do throughout the year, so we have to do these things throughout the year in order for us to raise enough money to support all we do. for
So
the
Donna's
community.
Venmo and your PayPal, correct?
Correct, yep.
Awesome.
And have you established the numbers?
As far as,
One ticket's 20, two
Yes.
tickets 30.
so one ticket is $20.
No,
two
you said
tickets
you were
is
working on
30.
the numbers.
Yeah, we were, and now this is the number
Okay,
that
so
it
this is
is.
the number.
One
Okay.
ticket for $20, 2 raffles for $30, and 3 raffles for $40, so it makes sense to get 3.
Yeah.
All right, all right, see you soon.
Look at that
now.
salesperson sell.